Hello, welcome to another English Sparkling with Tweedy video. Wiston today. I actually don't think I've featured any wines from Wiston on the channel, which is very remiss of me because Wiston are a very important winemaker. They do contract winemaking for a lot of my favourite English sparkling producers. Used to be through Dermot Sugrue, who was previously their head winemaker, and Dermot Sugrue has now left to solely focus on his own project, and they have put in a replacement whose name I have forgotten. That's terrible, isn't it? But I'm sure it is very good. I ordered a small case of 3 bottles directly from the Wiston website. They have, I think, quite a good deal on, you can get 3 bottles of their non-vintage wines, the Blanc de Blanc, the Rosé, and the whatever they call their classic cuvée, and it comes in a nice package. Perhaps I can do some overlay footage for you. A nice box of 3, and it's £95, including the postage and packaging. Sussex, they're near Chanctonbury Ring is how I always remember it. It's a famous landmark in Sussex. I think is actually owned by the Goring family, who also own this estate. Since I'm in my back garden again, might as well open this the fun way. Straight in the drain. It was a pretty successful endeavour, I think. That came off in a nice clean cut. It's a non-vintage. Non-vintage in practice means multi-vintage. Unlike Nyetimber, Wiston don't put any vintage breakdown. There isn't a sort of nice code, as far as I can tell, that you can look up. Although there is at least a disgorgement date here, for what it's worth. It was February 2023, so it's been just over a year under cork. They put the dosage there, interestingly, 9 grams a litre, which is just fairly standard sort of brut territory. It will of course be 100% Chardonnay. Well, I don't suppose it absolutely has to be, but almost all Blanc de Blancs will be 100% Chardonnay. Getting a tiny whiff of that struck match thing. I have a feeling this probably would have been made under Dermot's watch. I think if it was disgorged 2023, early 2023, that might have been around the time Dermot was leaving, but certainly the early winemaking, most of the first part of the process would have been handled by Dermot. Unfortunately, a bit of that struck match thing, of which I am not a fan. And I think Dermot was dabbling with that. I noticed that in a few of his wines a couple of years ago. Yeah, and something, I don't know, sort of flinty, possibly chalky, slightly wrapped up in that struck match. Beyond that, it's kind of masking everything else at the moment. I'm getting sort of possibly a bit of green apple, but I'm having to really dig for it. Better on the palate. It's mineral, something sort of chalky there, I think. Perhaps that's just my imagination. There's hints of lemon. It's pretty dry and pretty zingy. That always was one of Wiston's sort of characteristics, being a Dermot Sugrue wine. Pretty high on the acidity. There is a slight hint of something like pear there, I think, which is not a note I particularly like in sparkling wine because it reminds me of Prosecco, of which I'm not a fan. But maybe some other fruits that I can't quite put my finger on. So that struck match note, perhaps veering slightly towards the smoky, and this is not the first time I've heard talk of smokiness in a Dermot Sugrue sparkling wine, which is weird. You know, why would you want that in a sparkling? Smoky in red wine perhaps, but smoky in a white sparkling wine seems like an odd thing to want to put in. There is some slightly exotic fruit there. Is it something like persimmon? Is that Sharon fruit? Is that the same thing? Yeah, a little bit out of the ordinary apples and lemons you'd expect for a Blanc de Blanc. The texture is nice. I do like that. Has a sort of playful feel to it on the tongue. Quite a long lingering finish there. That effervescent sensation stays in the mouth along with the persistence from the acidity. Just not really a fan of the nose, if I'm honest. A little bit too much of that smoky struck match thing for me. Blanc de Blanc is not my favourite style of traditional method sparkling at the best of times, but I think, you know, when it's good, it shows some really nice fruit expression. You get that kind of condensed green apple, that sort of thing. I'm not really getting much of this here. It's a little bit more all over the place in terms of the fruit character. There's apples, there's pears, there's possibly a bit of lemon. Like I said, there's some persimmon or whatever that fruit is I'm trying to put my finger on. But I do like the texture, I do like the zing, I do like the way it's very dry. Just, yeah, I'm not sure about that smokiness, that struck match thing, and I would like the fruit character to be a bit more precise, a bit less vague. Well, perhaps it will develop in the glass, I don't know.